Hello everyone. Thanks for joining for the next lesson, the next in the series of Koine Greek. Today is video number 5, but if you're following along in the book from Machen, this will be lesson 6 on the adjective and the article. This is a critical lesson in learning Koine Greek and being able to translate Koine Greek and understand the New Testament in the original Greek. So this lesson is going to be a little bit longer. It's a little bit more involved. But in some ways, it is just a review and a putting together, if you will, of some of the information from the previous lessons. So it's more detailed. It's going to be a little bit longer because of that. But also, I'm going to do a comprehensive review for you that will run you through the highlights of all of the previous videos just to make sure you're up to speed. Some of this I will put up on the screen. Some of it is just information that I'm going to kind of lecture through. So first, I will put the alphabet up on the screen for you here. And let's review the Greek alphabet, if you will. You have alpha, beta, gamma, delta, epsilon, zeta, eta, theta, iota, kappa, lambda, mu, nu, xi, omicron, pi, rho, sigma, and note that in sigma you do have a final form. If it ends the word, you have a different form of sigma than if it comes in the middle of the word. We have tau, upsilon, phi, chi, psi, and omega. Those are your Greek letters, your Greek alphabet, and understand that we also have vowels and diphthongs. Go back to the very first lesson. I cover all of those in that lesson. In the book is lesson 2 that we did not do a video on. Now, as a quick way of explanation, I explained in that, I think in the second video, of why I skipped that lesson. The reality is the accent in very few places will make any difference in translation. There are, however, just a couple of words that I recall where it makes a difference, and we will learn those as we go. So I was taught without utilizing that chapter, without having to learn all of the minutiae, all of the little rules concerning where and what type of accent to place. I'm sure in the ancient Greek and the Koine Greek it had much more impact probably in pronunciation and how they would pronounce words and the tonal qualities. We've simply lost all of that. Now you can just simply learn the couple of words where accent matters to translation, and you can mark those in your mind and you're good. Lesson 2 was the present active indicative of the verb, with a verb being a word that indicates action or a state. And every sentence has to have a verb, although sometimes it can be implied or understood. In the verbs in the Greek, you have present or tense, voice, and mood. We learned the present, which is the tense, active, which is the voice, indicative, which is the mood. You can go back and review that lesson if you would like to get all of the definitions of that. And also to get a good visual on that paradigm for that particular present active indicative formation. So, for example, your vocabulary for that week was blepo, I see, gnosko, I know, grapho, I write, didasko, I teach, echo, I have, lambano, which can mean I take or I receive, lego, I say, and luo, which is I loose or I destroy. So we'll just take blepo for example. You could say blepo, which is I see, blep ace, which is changing the ending, adding an epsilon, iota, sigma to that stem of the beta, lambda, epsilon, pi. So you'd have blep ace, which means you, second person singular, see. You could do blep a, adding an epsilon iota, which would mean he, she, or it sees. That's the third person singular, present active indicative. You could add an omicron, mu, epsilon, nu, omen, blepomen, we, first person plural, see. Blepomen, we see. Blepeta, which would be an epsilon, tau, epsilon ending on that stem, would give you the second person plural of blepo. So blepeta. And then finally, you would have blepusi, which is omicron, upsilon, sigma, iota, which is the third person plural. So blepusi is the present active indicative third person plural, they see, of blepo. If you notice, I just did the parsing of the verb there. Continue to do that as you encounter each of these words. And anytime you encounter a verb throughout this, until it becomes second nature at identifying both the voice, tense, mood, and person and number. Until it becomes second nature through all that we do, continue to parse the verbs. That way it becomes committed to memory. The following 2 weeks, what we looked at was the second declension nouns and then the first declension nouns. Second declension are typically masculine or neuter. If they end in an omicron sigma, they are typically masculine. Omicron nu, they are going to be neuter. There can be exceptions to the rule, and we'll learn those as we go. But we learned that in declining nouns, you will have your noun, which is a word that refers to a person, place, or thing, or even an idea. Proper nouns are capitalized in Greek, the same as they are in the English. In Greek, you have 3 genders, which is your masculine, your feminine, and your neuter. Has nothing to do with the sexual gender. Rather, it's just a grammatical gender. Although most of the time, if it's a word referring to a man, it's going to be masculine. If it's referring to a female, it's going to be feminine. You have number, which is just singular and plural. In some other languages, you'll have numbers indicating 2. So you'd have a singular, a plural, and a bi. Or a 2. In Greek, there is just a singular and a plural. And then we have our cases, which is the nominative, which is always the subject of the sentence, the accusative, which is the direct object of the verb. We have genitive, which expresses different kinds of relationships, such as possession or source or separation. And your dative also is for relationships, but it's more of instrumentality or location or reception of something. Also, we talked about the movable nu. In Greek, they always wanted it to sound pleasing to the ear. So particularly with that third person plural of the present active indicative, that usi ending. So blepusi could sometimes be blepusin. And they would put a nu on the end of it, particularly when it's formed with certain other words. It does not have an impact other than the sound to make it a little more pleasing to the ear. But go back, review those, make sure you get those endings for the declensions of the second and first declension nouns. By way of vocabulary, that next week was adelphos, brother, anthropos, which is man or person or a human being. If it's in plural, it would be people. Apostolos, which is apostle. Doulos, which is a slave or a servant. Doron, which is a gift. Thanatos, which is death. Hieron, which is temple. And this is a good word and a good point to bring out the rough breathing mark. Anytime a word starts with a vowel or the row, it is going to have a breathing mark. If it is open to the front of the word, there would be no sound made. If it is closed to the front of the word and open going to the back of the word, basically like a reverse apostrophe, then it's going to make a h sound, a h sound. So temple has that rough breathing mark over that, so therefore it would be hieron, which is temple. Kai, which is a conjunction, means and. Logos is word. Nomos is law. Oikos is house. And if you'll notice, oikos, it starts with a diphthong. So you have the omicron iota, which makes the oi sound just like in English, oil. So it makes that sound. And anytime you have a word that starts with a diphthong, that breathing mark will be over the second vowel, as you notice here. And this particular breathing mark is a smooth breathing mark, contrasted with the rough and hieron. And also contrasting, the Iota epsilon is not a diphthong, but epsilon iota is. So in hieron, it is not a diphthong, so it goes over the very first vowel, but your omicron iota is a diphthong, so it goes over the second vowel. And it's a smooth breathing mark, oikos, which is house. And then weos starts with a diphthong also, makes the we sound, and weos is son. So go back, review those. Your lesson 3, which would have been your first declension, or lesson 4 would have been your first declension. So lesson 1 was your alphabet, 2 was your present active indicative verb, 3 is your second declension nouns, 4 is your first declension nouns, which is generally going to be feminine, though there are some exceptions to the rule. You still have your nominative, genitive, dative, accusative, all the same definitions in singular and plural. And by way of review, let's also do the vocabulary for these. You have aletheia, which is truth. And this is a good word to look at for how to pronounce and how to break down your syllables. In Greek, you're almost always going to have a consonant and a vowel for a syllable. So sometimes you're going to run into where, like for this, you'll have which is going to stand alone at the front of the word as alpha. And then you have a lambda and an eta, which is going to give you the lay sound, L and A. In English, then you have the theta, the epsilon, the iota, and the alpha at the end. So the two alphas here are going to stand alone because that consonant, lambda, needs a vowel with it, which will be lay. The theta, which is a consonant, needs a vowel with it, which stands here as the diphthong, the eta, and the iota, which makes an A sound also. So it'll be a, lay, they, and then the a at the end, the alpha will stand alone. Aletheia, truth, aletheia, truth. Basileia, kingdom. Graphe, a writing or a scripture. Doxa is glory. Arene, that has a smooth breathing mark. It stands on the second vowel because it is a diphthong that starts that word. Arene is peace. Ecclesia, a church. Intole, a commandment. Zoe, life. Day is also one that has the rough breathing mark. It's hemera. Hemera, if you'll notice, it has a rough breathing mark over the eta to start. A day. Cardia, heart. Parabole, parable. Phone, voice. Suke is soul or life. It can be either one. Sometimes you have to look at context. And hora. You notice the rough breathing mark over the omega to start that. That means an hour. So there's kind of a review of all of the previous weeks up to last week. We are going to look at the exercises for last week. If you are on Patreon watching this, or if you have bought the book to follow along, I'll link the book in the description below, or you can go to our website. I'll link it here above to where you can go to the reading list and get the book off of Amazon, relatively inexpensive. But if you're on Patreon, you can just download the worksheets, and I have the exercises there as well. And you can follow along and do those, and it will really help get this cemented in for you. But let's go over the exercises. Let me give you the answers, and each one, what we'll do, we will parse the verb. That's vital to continue to do in Greek, and then I'll give you the translation. So number 1 was suke blepe zoein. Blepe is a present active indicative, third person singular of blepo, and the sentence would read, a soul sees a life. Number 2 is basileia gnoske aletheon. Gnoske being the present active indicative, third person singular of gnosko, a kingdom knows truth. Number 3 is anthropos graphe in telos kai nomus. Anthropos, graphe, intulos, kai nomus. Graphe is the present active indicative third person singular of grapho. This sentence would read a man, or it could be a person. I typically just do a man because it's a general statement. A man writes commandments and laws, or a person writes commandments and laws. Number 4, apostoloi lambanusi doulos kai dora kai ekklesias. Here, lambanusi is the present active indicative third person plural of lambano, and this sentence would read, apostles take servants and gifts and churches. Number 5 is apostoloi kai ekklesiai, blepusi zoein kai thanaton. Blepusi being the present active indicative third person plural of blepo, so this would read, apostles and churches see life and death. Number 6 is huios doulou lege parabolein ekklesiai. Lege is the present active indicative third person singular of lego, so this sentence would read, a son of a servant, or you could also, in English, a servant's son, since that apostrophe S makes it possessive. Either one is acceptable, a son of a servant, which would be a more direct translation of the Greek, or a servant's son, says a parable to a church. Number 7, parabolein, legomen kai intolein kai nomon. Legomen being the present active indicative, first person plural of lego. We say a parable and a commandment and a law. Number 8, basileas gnoskete kai ekklesias. Gnoskete being the present active indicative, second person plural of gnosko, so it would be you plural, no kingdoms and churches. Number 9 is ekklesion didaske apostolos kai basileon doulos. Didaske being the present active indicative third person singular of didasko, or he, she, or it teaches. So this sentence would read, an apostle teaches a church and a servant teaches a kingdom. An apostle teaches a church and a servant a kingdom. You notice the first time I said an apostle teaches a church and a servant teaches a kingdom. The final doulos here is in the nominative, and it seems to not have a verb associated with it. So that means the verb is understood to be repeated with this second nominative. The verb stands for both. So the apostle, or an apostle, because it does not have the definite article, we'll talk about that today. An apostle teaches a church and a servant a kingdom, or a servant teaches a kingdom. Either would be acceptable. Number 10, nomon kai parabolein graphe anthropos ekklesia. Graphe is the present active indicative third person singular of grapho, and the sentence would read, a person writes a law and a parable to a church. Number 11 would be kardii anthroponon ekosi zoein kai erenein. Ekosi here being the present active indicative third person plural of echo, and would read, hearts of men have life and peace. Number 12, phone apostolon didaske sukos doulon. Didaske being the present active indicative third person singular of didasko. So this sentence would read, a voice of apostles teaches souls of servants. A voice of apostles teaches souls of servants. Number 13, hora eke doxon. Eke, present active indicative third person singular of echo, an hour has glory. Number 14 is phonai ekklesion didaskusi basileas kai anthropos. Didaskusi being the present active indicative third person plural of didasko, voices of churches teach kingdoms and people. Number 15, blepes dora kai doxon. Blepes being the present active indicative second person singular of blepo, you singular see, because if you'll notice here, there is not a nominative. So you, the verb, is going to imply the noun you see, second person singular, gifts and glory. Number 16, graphe ecclesia logon zoes. Graphe being the present active indicative, third person singular of grapho. He or she writes a word of life to a church. Number 17, lege cardias anthroponon parabolane kai nomon. Lege is the present active indicative, third person singular of Lego, and this sentence would read, he or she says a parable and a law to hearts of men. And finally, number 18, graphe ecclesia vias apostolou. Graphe being the present active indicative, third person singular of grapho, a son of an apostle writes to a church. So that is your exercises for the previous week. Take time, go back over those if you would, just to kind of commit them to memory and to try to get a good grasp of the language. So now we move to today's. The endings, I will tell you that you have learned in the first and second declension, you need to commit to memory for your declensions of your nouns. It is vital to being able to spot read and to recognize what you're seeing and to put the sentence into the proper orders. Today, you will see some of why, and I'm not going to put the examples up on the screen. You can go back and you can look at the examples of the endings of what we have week to week, and these endings are basically going to be the same as we get in today into adjectives. And then you'll also see some exceptions to the rule. For example, some of your vocabulary this week is a ramos, and even though it ends in an omicron sigma, which you would typically think to be masculine, you will notice if you have the vocabulary list that it has a hey or an ada with the rough breathing mark as its article, which would mark it as a feminine noun. So it is feminine. Same thing with hodos, which is road or way. It is marked as a feminine noun by the article, not by the ending. But they are still second declension that we covered back in week 3. They're still going to be second declension nouns. Today we're going to talk about the adjective. An adjective is a word that modifies a noun or an other substantive. And a substantive is any word or group of words that function as a noun. So theoretically, a verb can be a substantive if it's not connected with a noun and the noun is implied or it stands as a noun in the sentence. So adjectives also, in addition to this, they function in sentences either as attributive adjectives, which in English precede the nouns they modify, or as predicative adjectives, which in English follow a linking verb. In other words, the good word is an attributive position for an adjective. The word is good would be predicate. So the good word is attributive. The word is good is a predicate position. That is vital in the Greek, and you'll see that as we move forward throughout the lessons. Predicate, though, is generally defined as thus. It's a verbal element of a sentence that includes the verb, its objects, and the phrases governed by the verb. The predicate position refers to the position of an adjective that implies predication, the verb is, or of a position of participle or phrase that implies an adverbial function. Grammar is important in Greek, folks. If you don't know your English grammar, you better get brushed up on it because it is vital in Greek to understand what's going on. The other thing we're going to talk about today is the article. So we will discuss adjectives and the article. A word attached to a noun or other substantive indicating generality, an indefinite article, or specificity, which is a definite article. Greek only has a definite article that is roughly equivalent to the word the. An anarthrous construction is a construction having no definite article. Construction with a definite article is an articular construction. The way I typically explain this to my church would be thusly. This is the bottle of water. That has the definite article with it. It is talking about a very specific bottle of water. If I just said I have a bottle of water, that would be an anarthrous construction, and it could refer to any general bottle of water. If I ask someone, go get me a bottle of water, I really don't care what they bring me back. But if I tell them to get me the bottle that's in the back of the refrigerator, because it would be the coldest. With all of the definite articles, I lay out a specific path to get a specific bottle of water. So the article is also very important when translating Greek. And for some reasons, one, to be able to mark the adjective, that's why it's included with this lesson. But I think also more importantly is that in Greek it's going to differentiate, particularly in the New Testament. We don't translate things when we see it as the God. But almost always when you see the word God, theos, in the Greek, particularly when we're talking about the living God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, what you're going to see is it is going to be marked with the definite article. And if you will bear with me here just a moment, I'm going to the very beginning of John. And here you don't see the article. Some places you do. And if you'll go back, you'll remember this was your very first pronunciation that I give you to do back in lesson 1. In arche ein hologos, kai hologos ein proston theon. So you see the definite article there, but it goes on to say kai theos ein hologos. So in beginning was the word. It was a very specific. And the word was with the God, is how it is literally written in Greek, ton theon, the God. But we don't translate it that way. And then furthermore, we place a definite article in the first. In arche is in beginning, but we translate it in the beginning. But I love that example because the Greek leaves out that article, and to me that just speaks so much that it wasn't in the beginning, a specific time, but rather just an indefinite time past. God just simply was. And so was the Word. And the Word was with the God, and we don't translate it like that because we understand this to be God that we are speaking to as a specific God, but we don't put the God to separate him from others. He is just simply God, and God was the Word. That is John chapter 1, verse 1. And a good example of the article there. And again, it roughly corresponds with the word the in English, but you can get into some depths of theological meanings, different things with that in the Greek. Adjectives, they must agree in gender, number, and case with the noun that they modify. So if you have a noun that is masculine, plural, genitive, just as an example, then that article must also be masculine, and it must be plural, and it must be in the genitive form. And if you will remember your second declension, your genitive plural ending for the masculine was the omega nu, on. So if you do a adjective to attach to that word, either in the predicate or in the attributive, it must also have that same gender and number and case to agree with, though it will not necessarily agree in the form of the ending. Sometimes that could be a little bit different based on whatever's going on. So let me give you a little bit of information about the article and how it works with attributive and predicate positions of adjectives. So adjectives are used in two distinct ways, either attributively or predicatively. In the phrase, the good word, the adjective good is an attributive adjective. It identifies a particular word or kind of word we are mentioning. We are not mentioning all words or any word or a word generally, but only the good word. In the sentence, the word is good, the adjective good is a predicate adjective, and the verb is makes an assertion about the subject, the word. In Greek, the distinction between the attributive and the predicate adjective is of vastly more importance than it is in the English. And some of the most important and characteristic parts of Greek grammar are based upon this distinction. So this is a lesson you must get committed to your mind and must get a good grasp of before moving forward. Even if it takes you a couple of weeks to go through it, a couple of weeks to do the exercises, take the time to do it because the other lessons will be waiting when you get done. The characteristic of the attributive position of the Greek adjective is that the adjective has an article immediately in front of it. So if you see an adjective, and an adjective is something that modifies a noun. So good is what we're talking about. If you see, for example, ho agathos logos. Agathos being the word good, that's part of your vocabulary this week as an adjective. You notice the definite article ho is immediately in front of ho agathos logos. So that makes it an attributive position of the adjective. Or you could also do ho logos, ho agathos. You could change the order of the words, but it has to have the definite article in front of the adjective, and that makes it attributive and would read the good word. Conversely, the predicate position is marked by the fact that the adjective is not preceded by an article. So in other words, if you have ho logos agathos, the article is only in front of logos, which is word, or you could do agathos ho logos. Again, missing the definite article. The word is good. That could be referring to an entire group of words in general. So it is a predicate. Attributive is speaking specifically about the word, the good word. It is speaking about a specific word. Predicate is the word is good. It's more general. Attributive is marked, again, by having the definite article immediately preceding, immediately in front of the adjective. The predicate position, conversely, is marked by a lack of that article being in front. I am going to put up for you on the screen the declension of the article. The adjectives, you can look back at your second declension, your first declension, and you can get the endings for each one of those there. You will see how to do the declining, the declension of the masculine, the feminine, the neuter, of both the singular and the plural, and the nominative, genitive, dative, and the accusative. So what this boils down to is when you get the word agathos, for example, there are 24 different ways to decline this to make it agree with masculine, feminine, neuter, singular, plural, nominative, genitive, dative, and accusative. So these 24 endings are pretty vital for you to learn, to mark, to keep track of. And you'll notice as I put up the definite article, you're going to see a lot of similarities to those if you will pull up the other charts and look. But here's your declension of the article. The article is also going to agree in gender, it's going to agree in number, and it's going to agree in case with the noun that it joins with. So you will see these, and Machen recommends learning these across, horizontally, instead of vertical. Now, what we mean by that is he suggests learning the nominative singular masculine, feminine, neuter, plural masculine, feminine, neuter, then going to the genitive and remembering it across, memorizing it across, masculine, feminine, neuter in the singular, and then the plural masculine, feminine, neuter, then going to the dative and the same, going across instead of learning the vertical column. So I will read those to you the same way, and let me put those up on the screen for you. So your definite article, which roughly corresponds to thee in English, would be ho. And if you'll notice, these have the rough breathing mark. Ho, hey, to, hoi, hi, ta. Genitive, across, singular, then plural, would be tu, tace, tu, tone, tone, tone. Dative would be to, and notice in the dative on the singular, every one of these, and if you'll notice back in your other charts, every one of these have that subscript iota under them, which easily marks anything as a dative singular. So you'd have to, te, to, tois, tais, tois. Your accusative would be ton, tain, to, tus, tas, and ta. 24 different ways to decline that definite article. And look back through the charts for your first and your second declension. Your declension of the adjectives are going to be the same way for those to where you can make them agree. Again, they have to agree anytime you use an adjective or that article. It's going to agree in your gender, your case, and your number every time. So it's going to agree in gender, case, and number every time that you use any of those. Again, the attributive is going to be marked by the fact that it's going to have the definite article in front of the adjective. Ho agathos, logos would be the good word, or ho logos, ho agathos would be the good word. If it does not have the definite article in front of the adjective, ho logos agathos, or agathos ho logos, the word is good. That is the predicate position of the adjective. This is vital for you to remember. Let me go over your vocabulary for the week, and then we will take time to do together one of the exercises for this week before we part ways. So you have your vocabulary this week of agathos, which I've already showed you, is good. You have alos, which is other. Dikaios, which is righteous. Egero, I raise up, another verb. You have eremos, a desert, or sometimes a wilderness. Eschatos, which is last, that is an adjective. Eremos is desert or wilderness. You'll notice it has the Omicron sigma ending, the second declension ending, but it has the he as the definite article, so it is a feminine noun of the second declension. Same thing with hodos, which is one of your words this week, which means road or way. Kakos, which is bad. Kalos, which is good or beautiful. Kurios, which is Lord or the Lord. Mikros, which is small or little. It's where we get the word micro or micron from. Necros, which is dead, necrotic tissue, necrophilia, lover of the dead. A lot of these words that we have roots in the Greek. So necros is dead. The definite article, ho, hey, or to, the. Hodos, I give you road or way. Pistos is faithful, and protos is first. It's where we get the word prototype from, first type. So protos is first. Let me get the slide put up here, and what we will look at is the exercise for the week, and we are going to look at number 14 as an example. Here it is on your screen for you. I've taken time this week to lay out this exercise in a way to hopefully show you how the adjectives work, how they work with nouns, how they function in sentences, and I've kind of laid it all out for you to be able to see. So ho weos is the nominative singular, the son. That's your first two words. Your next three words would be tu esketu, adelphu. It is the genitive singular, and you'll notice that everything agrees in case, in gender, and in number. That is in the attributive position adjective, because a definite article is immediately in front of the adjective esketu, of the last brother. Blepe is the present active indicative third person singular of blepo, so he sees. The son of the last brother sees. So what does he see? But we look at the remainder of the sentence, we have tas kalos ekklesias. That's accusative plural. And you'll notice that every one, the adjective, the definite article, and the noun, all are the accusative plural. And again, we have this adjective here that's in the attributive position, and it means the good churches. And then we have the final words, tu kurioi, tu kuriu. Then we have the final words, tu kuriu, and that is the genitive singular of the Lord. Now, I would translate all of this out as the son of the last brother sees the good churches of the Lord. You could also, as I mentioned earlier, the son of the last brother sees the Lord's good churches. It would mean the same thing as it does as the good churches of the Lord. So there's your exercise for this week. It's a pretty comprehensive review. Take the time to learn these endings and fix in your mind the attributive, which has the definite article immediately preceding the adjective, or the predicate, which lacks the definite article preceding the adjective, because this is going to be vital in your translation as we go along. We'll look at John chapter 1 a little bit more as we go also, because it is full of those attributive and predicate throughout the book of John, even in John 1. So I'll use that for examples because I love the book of John. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me. I will have my email here on the screen for you. But the best way to get in touch with me, to ensure that I see it and to ensure that I am able to answer your questions, is to join the Patreon and then message me through Patreon, where I will get notifications, and that way you can get answers in a much more timely manner. Email sometimes goes to spam. YouTube comments kind of get lost in the mix a lot of times. But you can join the Patreon for $5 a month, get the lessons as they come out, get all of the handouts that I do. For example, this week I have handouts showing all 24 ways to decline the masculine, feminine, and neuter adjectives, and also the definite article, your exercises for you to access and be able to print out, and you have those each week. Again, thank you so much for taking time to watch. If you know anybody that may benefit from this, please share the YouTube or the Patreon, either one. I love being able to do this. If you'd like to support what we're doing and what we are doing, the ultimate goal is to go through the entirety of the Greek grammar, to be able to share for free with some of our, and by our I mean Church of God. That's where I'm a credentialed minister. I'm an ordained bishop in the Church of God, educated in Church of God schools, graduated from Lee University and Pentecostal Theological Seminary. But we have a lot of other schools around the world. And I want to get this material in those schools that instruct in English as a tool for them to use to be able to teach Greek to the students. So if you'd like to help support the work that we're doing, help us get some better equipment, and better setup, that type of thing, to be able to get flash drives, to be able to distribute this material, videos, and so forth, you can go to renewedministries.net, or renewedministries.org will redirect you to .net. And you can click on the donate button, and you can support us either with a regular amount every month, or you can also support us with a one-time charitable gift. Either way, they are tax deductible. If you do that with your taxes, you need to consult your tax professional for that. But we are a registered 501c3 nonprofit organization with the IRS. Thank you so much for taking time to watch. Look forward to the next video next week. And what we will be looking at next week will be some masculine nouns of the first declension. And then we will also be looking at prepositions next week. So now we're really beginning to get into the meat of how you can translate Greek, and you can start doing some real work there. Hope everyone has a blessed week. Thanks for watching.